But the place he arrived and thought about sleeping was a place where his grandfather, who was the original transactor, the original man that transacted with God, that received that vital spiritual oracle. The place where he set up an altar to commune with God was the location where his grandson, that did not know about God, decided to alight and decided to spend the night. He would say he was the one that chose the place. But because he was in custody of the thing, the spiritual thing his grandfather contacted on that same spot, he thought he was escaping, but the thing brought him to the location where it all began. God knew that this man did not believe in him. So what he did was that he allowed him to go to sleep, and when his spiritual senses, his physical senses were shut down, God took advantage of his sleep to activate his spiritual senses, and he afforded him the opportunity to look upon the same location where he laid down to sleep. The reason why the only thing that could influence him in that location was because when he arrived there, he decided that he needed pillow. He needed a pillow to make his sleep that night comfortable. And unknown to him, it was one of the stones that his grandfather used to set up an altar many years ago that became his pillow. He thought he chose the place, but the place chose him. When his spiritual eyes were open, he saw the same location. I want to start by asking you a question. Have you seen your family from the realm of the spirit before? Do you know why you are fifth born? Okay. If you have not seen your family from the realm of the spirit, you don't know your family. You don't know the context and the cycle of warfares that will accrue to every family member. You don't understand the battle. You don't understand the reason why men die before their time. This guy was given the opportunity to see the same location, but with his spiritual senses activated. The first thing he noticed in that location was that it was an angelic stronghold. And if you investigate the oscillatory motion of the angels in that location, you will find that they were ascending and descending. And the reason for that oscillatory motion was because what was responsible for their movement was not in heaven, it was upon the face of the earth. And that was Abraham's altar. Now, if you are still with me, say amen. Amen. The dealings that God had with Adam was around trees. His dealing was around the trees. The dealing that God had with Abel was around his sacrifice. The dealing that God had with Noah was around a notice of impending judgment. The dealing that God had with Abraham was around his altars. So if you say Abraham is a man of faith, and then you are also a man of faith, I will need to ask you a question: where are your altars? Because if you don't have altars, there is a deficiency in your faith you may not know now. When you reach the prime of your destiny, that's when you will be caught up in something that only altars can handle. It was Abraham's altars that was responsible for the spirit website that was opened in that location. And there was no way an inheritor of the covenant that his transaction with God had created will not be brought to the same location so that he can understand the length, the dimension of the implication of the covenant that he was carrying. If you are still with me, say amen. Amen. Just stay with me. I'm trying to build. He saw angels ascending and descending. He saw a portal that was secured, and then the supervising personality of his altar of Abraham's altar was standing at the head of the portal. Those are the 4 things that make up territory. First, if you want to know why a place is the way it is, you need to investigate the altars. How many altars have been put in place and how many spirits have been attracted to become active in that location on the account of the presence of altars? If you don't know that, you cannot change anything. Because it is the altars of Abraham that was responsible for the angelic stronghold. Because the altar was a righteous altar, the spirits that were coming and transacting around that altar were righteous spirits and heavenly beings. But that's not the only possibility that abounds with altars. If the altar is a demonic altar,